Director, good to see you here. I noticed in your testimony you said you visited all our states. Did you visit Vermont or did you visit the Albany station?
I visited all 56 field offices, and then when I was in the Albany field office, which, as you know, has Vermont as part of its AOR, I met with quite a number of...
I've been to New York before.
Yes, well,
went there.
but I met with a number of the law enforcement officials from Vermont, specifically.
Come to Vermont sometime,
yeah.
And I'm sure they'd like to see you. I know I would. We know from unsealed search warrants in the Michael Cohen investigation that President Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator in a criminal campaign finance scheme to cover up an affair with hush money payments. Crime occurred both during the campaign and while Mr. Trump was in the Oval Office as he signed hush money checks while he was serving as president. But the investigation ended abruptly last week. Only Michael Cohen faced any consequences. So my question is, it's not clear from what was in the press that this investigation ran its full course. Certainly no one interviewed the president. Do you know whether the decision to close the investigation was made by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York or by appointees of Main Justice in Washington?
Well, the decision to decline a matter involving prosecutorial discretion is, of course, made by the prosecutors. In this instance, I don't know exactly who made the decision.
You don't know whether it's in Washington or New York?
I don't know which prosecutors were involved in making the decision.
But do you know whether they were in Washington or New York?
I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you. So are you aware of any political pressure that may have been brought to bring about that decision in the Southern District?
I'm not aware of any political pressure.
Okay. Now, we know the Justice Department believes a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime, and that leaves, for the time being, such matters to Congress and the public. Now, since this investigation is now closed, as we just talked about, will you release the 302s and other relevant files in the hush money investigation?
Well, Senator, it's not normally our practice to produce investigative information for investigations that are closed, especially when it comes to other individuals in the matter. I think that's part of the protection that we provide through the confidentiality of the work we do.
That's interesting because on that confidentiality, you provided Congress with 880,000 pages of investigative documents relating to the Clinton email investigation. That also included 46 interviewed 302s provided to Senator Grassley and myself as chairman and ranking member of the committee. And while you served as director, the FBI gave Congress thousands of pages related to surveillance activity of Russian contacts with the Trump campaign. That investigation was still ongoing. I'm not suggesting that this administration would treat the investigation of Hillary Clinton differently than the investigation involving Donald Trump, but it might appear that way. Because if you don't release these files now, it's contrary to your recent precedent. Is it the case that the FBI only provides investigative records when the request is made by Republican officials?
Well, Senator...
Think of the 880,000 pages in the 46 interview 302s.
It is certainly the case that in my first 2 years almost as FBI director, we have been engaged with numerous committees and countless oversight requests involving all sorts of things. We try very hard to be as transparent as we can be with congressional oversight while at the same time protecting ongoing investigations, protecting confidentiality, respecting the privacy of uncharged individuals, protecting sources and methods, respecting grand jury secrecy, and there's a whole slew of things that we try to balance. My experience is we try to work through each one on a case-by-case basis.
The investigation I talked about is now closed. So will you release the 302s and the other relevant files in that hush money investigation the same way you did on the Clinton investigation?
I'd be happy to take a look at any request from you or any other member of the Hill and see if there's more information we can provide.
Consider that a request. Okay. And let's you and I talk about the next few days, because I don't want it to be just a run along. And I have spent a few years here, so I know answers that are brush-offs and answers that are real. I want that a real answer.
I'd be happy to have my staff follow up with yours.
Thank you. Earlier this year, it was reported the NSA has stopped using the Call Detail Records Authority authorized by USA Freedom and is not asking it to be reauthorized. You mentioned this morning the FBI would like Congress to reauthorize the business records, roving, wiretap, and lone wolf provisions in the USA Freedom, which expire on December 15. Yet we have not heard anything from the White House on their position regarding reauthorization. The only reason I mention it is we're only 5 months away from these authorities expiring. That could be a lifetime in the Senate. There's been radio silence from the White House. Do you know when they plan, or if they plan to finally share their position on reauthorization with Congress?
I'm not aware of a formal administration position on the USA Freedom Act or of the precise timing for when there will be one. My description earlier in response to questions was not a formal request for reauthorization, but rather a description of some of the, from an operational perspective, what we at the FBI feel are some of the most important tools currently in law that we would hate to lose.
Thank you. Well, we can follow up on that too. You also, the Department of Homeland Security plays a critical role in securing our elections, but based on your testimony from the FBI's perspective, if the 2020 elections were held today, are you fully confident that our state and local election officials are fully prepared to defend against foreign cyber attacks? And I ask that because 22 state attorneys general asked Congress to bolster their state's election security funding, and I will put that letter in the record.
Americans should feel confident in our elections, in our electoral system. That does not mean that there aren't threats facing it, and that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work, hard work, that's already being done and that needs to be done still between us, our colleagues at DHS, ODNI, NSA, state and local officials, the Congress, the private sector. This is an American issue for all of us, and we all need to work together. But Americans should feel confident that we have the finest election system in the world.